The kids you found.
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's gonna pass the drug trade. Because you can sell a bag of cocaine one time to a child 5 to 10 times a day. God's children are not for sale.
How long you been doing this?
12 years now.
How many pedophiles you got?
288.
How many kids you found?
Timoteo, tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? ¿Puedes ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana?
Te lo prometo.
For Homeland Security, you know we can't go off rescuing Honduran kids in Colombia.
Which means she'll disappear for good. Imagine walking into her room right now, seeing an empty bed. What we do?
You quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
So at this moment, she could be a block down the road, or she could be in Moscow, Bangkok, LA. She's a major operator.
It's all rebel territory. No one goes in. Not the army, not the police, not us.
What if this was your daughter?
There's no Marine unit coming.
You're on your own. This job tears you to pieces. And this is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
When God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate.
All right, Flyover family. You look to your left, you look to your right, you turn on the television, you open a newspaper, and we hear this all the time, and we experience it ourselves. You're like, when will there be justice for the wrongs in the world? We're in an era where it seems like evil is called good, and oftentimes good is called evil. We've got an opportunity. This is episode for you to share out, get into people's hands, because when you see evil, rarely do you personally have a chance to make an impact on it, to do it. And we have somebody that's going to inspire you and actually give you a chance to partner with putting a dent in evil that's taken place in this world, from the Operation Underground Railroad, a hero of ours for sure, Mr. Tim Ballard.
Yay!
Man,
Thank you, guys. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
the
Thank you.
studio audience loves you. They've been camping out all night
I
waiting
didn't realize
for
how many
this.
people you had in this.
I know.
Amazing.
Yep.
Well,
They've
well-
piled in our basement.
Getting applause and finding people to cheer for you, sometimes it's hard to find, so it's too important to leave the chance.
That's
We have
true.
to script that in, but you deserve it. I remember the first time I saw you on interviews with Candace Owens, it was maybe 3 years ago, something like that, talking about this, and that this language was kind of new in our world. We'd been involved in some ministries that were raising money for different projects involving sex trafficking. And when I first heard that, this was only maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when I heard that term, I thought it was maybe a couple of hundred cases globally. I thought it was some minor thing to the fringes, and I was kind of mentally involved in activism and things that the church was doing and missions projects. We'd lived overseas. We had done, lived in Mexico. I was still oblivious to the things even that you were talking about. I was shocked and put back, and so moved by your story. If you can catch people up a little bit on your background and what transitioned you from a normal job on border and focus on these things to where you were actually making a difference.
Sure. Thanks so much again for having me on the show. And yeah, so I spent 12 years in the federal government as a special agent, undercover operator for Homeland Security investigations. 10 of those years was on the southern border. And so I really learned a lot and got involved in working anti-trafficking, child exploitation cases. And I was shocked. I mean, I'm still shocked, but shocked at the numbers. This is $150 billion a year are made off the backs of people who are enslaved. 6 million children are enslaved. That's either labor, organ harvesting, or sex. And so there's 2 million children in the commercial sex trade of those 6 million. So I'm learning about these things. I'm going undercover. I'm getting involved overseas in 2006 with the passage of the Adam Walsh Child Protect Act. What that act did was it eliminated the statutory requirement that once existed that said that a sex tourist who's going to hurt kids overseas can only be prosecuted in the U.S. if you can prove that person had the idea, the motive, the intent while standing on U.S. soil, which means before 2006, I think there was like 0 prosecutions.
Yeah, it'd be almost impossible.
That was eliminated. And so it's like, whoa, floodgates open. Let's go find these guys. And that's when I was even more shocked. I mean, every year, just more and more shocked. Now we're before that, it was doing a lot of the end user, the child pornography, exploitation, material cases. Now we're going to go find those kids, and so that's when things opened for me. And I would get invested in these cases, and we were kind of figuring out how to do it. How do you go overseas to find American sex tourists? The problem is that the government was accidentally kind of torturing me because finding the kids was not the hard part. The kids were being sold everywhere. Working in so many countries in Central America, Mexico, Caribbean. But if I had a limited time to find the American connected to those kids, I have to come home. Wow. And so many times being told, no, come home. So in 2013, I was working 2 cases, one in Haiti and one in Colombia, where I got so emotionally involved, went so deep into it that when they told me you don't have enough evidence that there's a U.S. law being violated, come home. I said, I can't come home this time, and I called my wife and we talked and she said, just quit. Let's just, man. Wow. Glenn Beck raised money for me so I could finish off these operations as a private citizen. and it worked. I mean, we pulled off one of the largest rescue operations that was ever recorded to this day. That was in October 2014. And so that story is depicted in The Sound of Freedom.
I don't know if Glenn gets enough credit for the things he's involved in, but his name consistently pops up with something good. I remember when we had the Afghan withdrawal debacle with people left behind, and it's like, well, guess who's right in the middle of finding private planes and people to, get them out? Glenn Beck. He seems to really put his time, treasure, and talent behind these things that are important, not just talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what Glenn did in 2014, he started something called the Nazarene Fund, which was, you just mentioned Afghanistan. What you don't realize is probably I'm the CEO of the Nazarene Fund. I was running those operations out of Afghanistan.
Really?
Wow.
Glenn's because I run I founded OUR. I'm the CEO of Glenn Beck's Nazarene Fund. But Glenn started that, and he moved, I want to say like 15,000 Christians and Yazidis out of the Middle East when ISIS was rolling in. And, you look at a movie like Schindler's List or something, and it's just like, that's amazing what he was able to do. But Glenn Beck is that times 100, and no one will give him the credit.
Yeah.
And they have no idea, and he doesn't really care. He truly is who he says he is. And then 2 years into that project, he called me. He had been the godfather of Operation Underground Railroad in terms of getting us launched. Without him, the Sound of Freedom wouldn't exist. In fact, in the first version of the script, Glenn was in the script. And it wasn't my choice to take him out because he was pivotal in raising that money in that crisis time. But then in 2016, he called me and he said, hey, I need you to take over the Nazarene Fund because we're not just moving Christians now. We are actually like extracting them and Yazidi kids from the grips of ISIS, and we need rescue operations now. So I've been running that since. And Glenn's always been the godfather of every good thing I'm involved in. So
it's good to hear that.
That is so good. That is really good. What has been the backlash, Tim, in this movie coming out? We saw it a couple of years ago, the screening of a couple of years. It's been a while in the process. What has been the backlash that you've been receiving?
Well, it's all God's timing. Angel Studios absolutely had to put it out and had to put it out right now. But yeah, that comes with adversity. It comes with people not wanting this movie out there. this movie's been owned by Fox. It's been owned by Disney. It's passed through several hands who had the rights to it to get it distributed, and it just couldn't launch. It couldn't launch. It's strange, it's because it's a very high quality film. It's
It's amazing.
an exciting story, but it's about something that the devil does not want out there, because it only goes away. I go back to history. Like, how did slavery exist in our country for 350 years under the transatlantic slave trade? How? But more importantly, how did it end? And I love Abraham Lincoln. He's one of my favorites, but even he realized it wasn't all him. When he met Harry Beecher Stowe for the first time in the White House, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, he said to her, "So you're the little lady that wrote the big book that started this war." And so he recognized that it's the storytellers, it's the people who will get out in the media, and that's how we create the movement for change, and that's how slavery was eliminated in that time, and that's what we're looking to do now. We have to eliminate, but it's not going to happen unless there's a million points of light that wake up, and once that happens, we can end it. So the devil does not want this movie out because it's going to ignite people. There's going to be this great wave of light. You mentioned earlier about how people are just waiting to do something good. There's a silent majority, I feel like, that as they wake up, we're going to crush these evil things happening in our country, in the culture wars and policy and things that are hurting children. It's insanity. But I hope this movie can be kind of a catalyst to wake a ton of people up and bring more light in this darkness.
It's a dark subject that's done in a tasteful way, where it's not overly graphic, but there's the implication where what's happening, what just happened. The weight is on you just as heavily if everything was seen, but it's something you can still go as a family and see. Maybe not super young kids, but you could go, in
teenagers for sure.
Yeah, where you can. It's the darkest thing that you could possibly do a movie about, but it's done in a way that people can still see it. Images change things. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I think I like the Ray Rice case, the football player, that hit his wife in an elevator and knocked her out, but it was on video. And there's a big difference between, this happened and it's reported. When people saw that happen, he never played again. That guy was done because you saw it. It was a video. It was undeniable. When people see a film, all of a sudden, especially the way this is done, this makes sense. This is undeniable. I get it, and they become an advocate for this.
That's exactly right. And these storytellers, and I really believe, like Lincoln saying to Harry Beecher Stowe, and all the storytellers of the 19th century, you're the ones that made this happen. And I look to the storytellers just as I look to those historical heroes. They're the ones that are going to end this. We've rescued over 7,000 women and children since we began. Wow. But there's millions. So we can only do what we can do, and it's always worth it, even for us. But we need a movement. And that's what this is going to be able to be for us. And what better way, like you're saying, than to sit in a dark room and have your undivided attention and just be consumed by what really is a masterpiece. These storytellers, they use light, and they told me they're going to make it like a portrait. Every scene is a portrait because they need to make it digestible because it's a difficult material, or the subject matter. Also, you'll note in the movie, and for those, especially those moms and dads out there who are worried about taking your kids, I told them, make it real, make people know what it is, but don't make any material that could make a pedophile excited.
Right. Yes.
And
they
did That's a good point.
That's
so
exactly
well done.
right. When we saw the screening of it, we were with a pretty large group of people, and the theater didn't move. Literally, it was done. The credits were rolling, and everybody just sat there. And it was like just absorbing what we just saw. And it was like, wow, we have to do something. It was like we wanted to take action. It didn't cause fear where you're like, I just want to pull the covers over my head and suck my thumb. I don't know what to do. It was truly, how can I participate to make a difference and to actually change what's happening right now?
And I've watched now hundreds of people watch the movie. I come in at the end. I can't watch it because I get PTSD and I cry and I sweat. I just can't even watch it. They filmed so many scenes in the actual places where they happened.
Wow.
It's a lot for me. But I watch at the end, and what you described is every time. They just sit there. It reminds me of like Schindler's List. I remember like in the theater, like no one, you can't even move. and they just sit there.
It's like that, but it's now.
It's going on right now.
I almost want to use the term feel good. It's feel a lot.
Yeah.
But there is a goodness because there's redemption in this story, and it slingshots you into something that's currently happening. Because when you watch Schindler's List, when you watch any movie, you kind of project like, what would I do in that situation? Like, who would I be? Like, what would I? Man, how is he ever going to get out of this? What would I? You sort of do that when you're watching a film. But this is going on now. So if you could go back to the 1930s, you're like, man, if I could go back and help Oscar Schindler, I would do anything to help. Like you think you would do that, and maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. But this is right now.
Yes.
You get a chance to say, what would you do? What would you do if you're alive in the 1860s? What would you do if you were alive in 1930s? You're alive right now, and this gives you a chance to find that out about yourself.
To find out what you would have done, right? I would have been an abolitionist. I would have been this. I would have. Well, to your point, the Academy Award-winning producer of Schindler's List, Jerry Mullen, he worked on a project. The very first documentary that was ever made about OUR, it was called The Abolitionist, and he was the producer of it. And it did okay. It didn't go that wide, but he told me that same thing you're saying. He said, Tim, this little documentary we're doing may be more important than Schindler's List, because the only problem with Schindler's List is we made it 50 years too late. What if Schindler's List was made in 1939? Would there have been a difference? Absolutely. I mean, people in Poland might have stood up and said, "Oh heck no! Like, let's go!" And so what an opportunity to have in this case. Like, to your point, David, to have in this case the Schindler's List of our Holocaust that we're dealing with.
Yes.
The rape, the millions of children being raped, and we're in the middle of it. We can do something. Wow, what a blessing.
It is a huge blessing, and we can participate. You were talking about earlier about waking up. Our slogan here at Flyover Conservatives is wake up, speak up, and show up. And that's something that our audience can do right now at this time. In fact, Flyover Conservatives, when you go to angel.com/flyover, this is where you can buy your tickets. We encourage this because right now there is a 2 million by 2 million. Can you explain that to our audience? What does that mean exactly?
So there's 2 million children in the commercial sex trade. And I also want to add that there's so many children being abused outside of the commercial part of it, right? So that number's low. But there's 2 million children roughly every year, according to State Department and others, that are forced into commercial sex. And so to represent each of those, we want 2 million butts in seats, 2 million people on July 4th weekend in the theater to watch Sound of Freedom. And one issue we're having right now is we're selling out theaters. Like, we are outselling 3 to 1 over Indiana Jones, which is the other main movie coming out. So we're beating them. The problem is when you sell at a theater, you cap, and the theaters are afraid to bump Indiana Jones because they don't want to piss off Disney.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so the only way around it is to get all the theaters to all agree, okay, if we all bump Indiana Jones out so we have more room for Sound of Freedom, they can't hurt all of us. They need us. So we're trying now to get people, don't just buy the tickets, and you can pay it forward and buy tickets for others. Do that. Also call your theater if they're selling out and say, no, open up another theater. We want to bring a group,
right?
Or or a church could buy out a theater and say, we want to buy out a brand new theater. We want one of those that's already, we don't care. We'll buy the whole theater right now. And so we've got to get over the cap we're hitting right now.
That's huge.
I made a call this morning. A good friend of ours, good friend of the show. They made the documentary, The Trump I Know. Incredible documentary. Matt and Joy Thayer, and I think they've met you at a screening or a show. They have a podcast called Sparrow Pictures. They understand this industry, and I said, explain to me this again. We worked with them a little bit on Jesus Revolution and some other documentaries. The business model, and it makes it so clear. You got to know how this works. Again, Flyover family, we're working together to slingshot this thing in front of more eyeballs. That's the end game. But how do we do it? Matt explained to me. He said, if this is in, say, 1,400 theaters when it first comes out, those theaters are all independent businesses. I live in Lee Summit, Missouri. It's B&B theaters here, so they have it. They make more from concessions and different things. They need people in the room for their business model to work. And so if people show up in the theater, they see people showing up to see this movie, demanding more screens, this thing could open up to twice as many theaters the next week because they want the product that's selling. They want the Cabbage Patch doll that's selling it. They want the Air Jordans that are selling hot. Like, they want the product. And so if we demonstrate that this is something
Huge.
that we want to see, they will open it up to more theaters. But it's not personal. You just have to kind of show up and put your, not just your money where your mouth is, but put your butt where your mouth is as well by being in the seat. I think, we spend a lot of money in this country blowing stuff up on the 4th of July and eating too many hot dogs and all this stuff. That's great. Maybe don't stop. But if you had a choice, hey, spend $10 less on a firecracker and $10 more on this movie. Make it a family event. Make it, if you get together with a group of people and they're all come to your house to blow stuff up, and because that's what our founding fathers would have wanted on this day, eat too much and blow things up, then hey, before we go there, let's go to the theater and see this movie, and then let's go to the house. Like turn it into part of your family event. You're off work, go see, make this an event that people gather around and rally around, and they made a high quality movie. This isn't that's kind of good for a Christian film.
Amazing.
And this is as good as anybody you'll see. And the characters in it, I got to ask, what's it like when a movie's made of you? You have Jim Caviezel playing you, and your wife, the lady's name is Mira Sorvino. I've seen her in other shows. I think if there was a movie about us, I'd want maybe, Brad Pitt or somebody to play me, That's a good thing. You guys got high quality people playing you, and they couldn't have done a better job.
Yeah, well, they came to me in December of 2017, and they said, we're going to make the film. I didn't think they were going to actually make it. They came to me a year earlier, and they got the interview from me, and they said, here's how we would do the story arch, and then they left. And then I did some research and found out that 3% of movies that start in concept make it to the big screen.
Wow.
So I knew they were never going to call again. And then they call me a couple of years later. Okay, here we go. We're going to start filming in 6 months. We need to pick a person to play you. You don't get to choose, but who would you request? And right away I said Jim Caviezel.
Jesus is pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
You did
that's
amazing.
exactly why. One, because The Count of Monte Cristo is my favorite movie.
Yes, me too.
Yep.
But also I told them, look, I'm in a job right now largely because of Hollywood. They're creating the demand by sexualizing all these minds, and
Wow.
So I don't trust Hollywood. But the one guy in the industry that I know loves Jesus is Jim Caviezel. I know that.
Yes.
And he's a phenomenal actor, and that's why he's my choice. And they kind of balk mostly because we look nothing like each other. He's tall, dark, and handsome, and I'm short and squatty, and it's like, no, because at the end of the movie they want to do a if you remember, they do this transition where they're showing real footage from the, and they said, what if he looks nothing like you? And I said, well, that's your job to figure out. I don't really care. And so they went with it. They did an okay job.
He looked like you.
Yeah, they
in
did
the
an okay
movie.
job, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. I think they did a great job.
Because we're doing interviews together right now, sitting side by side, and it's just like we're so different. But in the movie, they did a decent job.
They sure did.
Well, his
And,
ability to show empathy and pain in a way, that's what made Passion of the Christ such an, his eyes, and there's something about him. He can communicate the depth of his emotion. Like, you're in the theater watching it, you're feeling it, but you're feeling what he's feeling. It's like a connection that's really powerful.
He says a million words just with his eyes.
Yes.
There's one scene in particular where the Vampiro Batman character is telling him basically his story of how he found God, and this is the line where it says, when God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate. And that's when I'm in this point of, do I quit or do I stay? Do I leave my job for safety and security, or do I stay in vulnerability to find these kids? And the camera flashes on Jim, and it's just, it's crazy. You look at his eyes, like, Jim, how did you do that? And he just said the Holy Spirit just took over.
Wow.
I had a conversation with Mel Gibson once about Jim, and I was telling him that. I said, Jim's got this ability to, he speaks more through his eyes than through his mouth. And Mel looks at me and he goes, well, why'd you think I chose him for The Passion? And then he says, Jim is otherworldly. Those are the words that Mel Gibson said to me. I'm like, that's exactly right. He is otherworldly. Yeah, he has the right kind of makeup and whatever. He's called. He's called to this work, and God can use him because he'll just be that vehicle. I've heard him say before, I didn't play Jesus, Jesus played me. You know,
Wow.
he just,
Wow.
take me over, Lord, and tell me what to do. And that's where you get these amazing moments where just his look alone is just kind of beautiful, shocking, beautiful.
No doubt a bit about it. Again, go to angel.com/flyover. I just want to walk through this real fast so people know how to get the tickets. When you go there, there's a place at the top for zip code. So it should automatically fill out your zip code. If it doesn't, just enter your zip code at the top. It's going to show you all the theaters are in your zip code area that you can buy tickets. So when you go on there, buy your tickets from here so that they're knowing the 2 million by 2 million. So we know that that's being done. But the other thing too is at the bottom, you can pay it forward. So if somebody can't afford to go, you can actually pay for their tickets to be able to go. And then if there's somebody that can't afford it, they can go claim the free ticket there. And so we want to participate. This is a way that we can speak up and show up and be a part of the solution and help to get this information out there, because it's critical that everyone knows what's going on so that we can do something about it. And this is a great way of being able to support Tim and his ministry to get this information out there as well. So it's not just 7,000 children. That's a great number, but millions of children that can be saved, just like Tim was saying earlier.
It is something once you see, you can't unsee. Like,
No.
you ever seen one of these like 3D pictures that it's got like a picture within it that looks like just gibberish when you see it, and then all of a sudden it pops out, you know, once your eyes kind of cross, and like then every time you look at it, that's what you see. Like, you can't unsee this movie. And so by getting your people group together, your friends, your buddies, your whoever together, your home group at church, your Sunday school class, like, get people together that might not have seen this otherwise and go see it together. They will walk out knowing what needs to be done and be a part of putting a dent in this. You mentioned Mel Gibson a moment ago. I know there's some rumors about a documentary coming out that he's working on. Can you give us any information about that?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what happened, how this thing leaked somehow, and it became a viral story last week. So there's a documentary that's called Hidden War. It tells the story of our operation we did last year. That started in Ukraine and went through 6 countries, and I spoke earlier about that operation. It's an amazing documentary. It's going to come out probably late this year. Now, Mel is not a producer of it, and no, we never said he was, but Mel was an important catalyst in launching the operation when he called me right in the wake of the war and said, he gave me names of kids that he knew about in Ukraine. He was filming in Budapest at the time, and he was getting me these names, like, help this kid, this orphan, that orphan. We got to get him out.
Wow.
And so he said, could you go to Ukraine? And I put together a team and went out to Ukraine and found more than we even knew we would, and ended up getting a list of 10,000 plus kids that were missing. We partnered with the group that led out on this called Aerial Recovery, amazing organization. I'm on the board there. And then we did our thing. We found 6,000 people, children, women, mostly were rescued out of the war zone. And then we identified that trafficking ring that were trying to hurt kids and move them out. And we filmed the whole thing. We filmed it.
Wow.
And I called Mel from Ukraine, and I said, I'm here. This is really expensive, and we're going to start filming this. Will you just help me out? Like, would you consult as we go through this? And we thought we were going to do a little documentary just on Ukraine. Little did we know, thank goodness we had the cameras rolling, because little did we know that we were not going to stay in Ukraine. We were going to go to Holland and Mexico and Ecuador, and because we're chasing this pedophile ring. And in 4 months, we took them all down and filmed the whole. It's a crazy story. So Mel shows up. Mel's supporting and helping the whole time, but actually he's not producing it. But Tony Robbins is producing.
Like the Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins is the producer, along with a few other people, of Hidden War. So I'm glad
That's
that story.
amazing.
I don't know who leaked it, but it was good. It was giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
It's exciting.
As much as you're like disappointed in different characters, you find things out. It's like, and just Hollywood in general, and it's such like disappointing as moral decay, I guess you'd say. But we don't hear enough of these like good people that are doing great things. That's exciting to hear about Tony Robbins. I just know him from his seminars and Shallow Hal and Demons Out, and all this.
I love that. Yeah,
it's a great movie. These things, but
Tony has raised over $20 million for us over the last few years.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
He is very, very, very dedicated. He's been on an operation with us to see it firsthand, and he's a dear friend of mine. So amazing people. Him
That's
as
so
That
good.
is so cool to
It's
hear.
so good to hear. Mel Gibson is a guy that clearly is gifted at not just his craft, but also the ability to be courageous, say and do the right things. When he sees a ball, he calls balls. When he sees strikes, he calls
Yep.
strikes. And I think that'll be an important voice, in this space moving forward.
Absolutely, I agree. It's again, like to your point earlier, it's so amazing to see how many people of light actually exist. And even cameras on, cameras off, they're doing, Tony came to me with cameras off. Mel came to me with cameras off. It was just, this is the right thing. And Glenn Beck, the same. Cameras
Yep.
off. He doesn't care. Let's go. We got to do this. We got to meet our maker. He'd always say, I got to meet my maker someday. I'm not going to say no to this.
Wow.
It's like, what a way to live,
Love it. Those are heroes right there for sure.
Well, we got an opportunity to do the same thing by participating in supporting this film.
Yep.
And again, don't just go. That's good, but be an evangelist for this. If you look for something like, hey, what can I rally around and make a difference? This doesn't take a lot. You don't have to go risk your life. When you see what Jim Caviezel's character, Tim, what he does in this movie, you're like, wow, that is literally life on the line. We're just asking, hey, get like 5 buddies and go see this movie together. Eat some popcorn. That's not really suffering for Jesus too terrible much. But it's something. If we all do, we'll make a difference. It begin to swing. It begin to swing this pendulum in a really good way. So go to angel.com/flyover. They just track traffic that way. This isn't a compensation thing. It's just to track it and make it easy to go to the landing page. So angel.com/flyover and get more than enough tickets. If you can't afford a ticket, you're like, I have no money. I spent them all on fireworks. They have an opportunity to be able to, for you to be able to claim a free ticket from people that have already done that. So wherever you are on that spectrum, if you can pay more, we were one time there was a coffee shop in the town we lived in. Then in the morning, somebody paid for the person behind them. Like just, I don't know why on a whim or whatever, felt like God told them, they paid for the person behind them at this coffee shop. That lasted over 8 hours. The person that, I'll pay for the person behind me and I'll pay. Then the news was covering it. It was kind of a cool thing. It's like people, it feels good to do a little bit more. And you don't have to be rich to do it. You just have to have, enough to buy an extra movie ticket for somebody. So if you have the opportunity to do that, experience that and be a part of the Schindler's List of right now, because that's exactly what this is. And Tim, the word hero is used too loosely on athletes and all kinds of different things. You really are a hero. And I thank you for what you've done in private and in secret. That's now God is just highlighting in such a visible way. And I think it's going to inspire a lot more Tim Ballards out there.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be with you guys. And thank you for your spirit. And you're so genuine. And I love it. I'm sure your audience is too. So thank you. We need you. The Army of Light. Thank you guys so much.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread the light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put to the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
Do your feet ache and throb in pain with every step you take every day of your life? Well, kiss those days goodbye with slippers from MyPillow.com. How about that flimsy, flat little excuse for a pillow that's nothing but 8 hours of disappointment, causing you pain in your neck every single night? You can wake up with nothing but butterflies and rainbows around your head with a MyPillow pillow. Those hardwood floors hurting your old bones? No more with a MyPillow dog bed. Are your towels worn thin, flimsy, more patchy than Joe Biden's memory? There's nothing better than absorbent towels from MyPillow.com. For all of these products and more, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code FLYOVER for up to 66% off.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The MyPillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, MyPillow 2.0. When I invented MyPillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. MyPillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature-regulating thread. MyPillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of MyPillow.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
Hey, Flyover family! We have a brand new sponsor for the Flyover Conservative Show, Heaven's Harvest. So exciting.
We've been really excited about this partnership because for about 2 years now, our level of awareness has increased on things that can go wrong in the world. Not just the big major stuff, but ice storms in Texas and things that, you don't plan on. And I guess a level of personal responsibility of like, hey, we have people that we care for that depend on us. And so we've been tiptoeing into it, but it's overwhelming. It's like, what do I do next? And so we've made little steps in that process, but we've been asking everyone we know, everyone we respect in this space, hey, who's a good supplier of things? Who has food that you would actually eat if you had to, that without eating styrofoam that you'd be gagging down if you lost a bet? Like real actual food that if you put it away for storage, that when it came time to do it would be palatable, as well as heirloom seeds. A lot of the seeds nowadays, you plant them, they're not, you can't reproduce with them. They've been genetically modified and really messed up. So we've been asking people we really respect. Somebody we get a lot of advice from personally, we've made a lot of small moves in our life from, is Seth Holhouse with Man in America. And we kind of went off of his lead as well as some others. And so we are super excited about this partnership because they're willing to give a massive discount to the Flyover family.
That's exactly right. When you go to heavensharvest.com and you use promo code FLYOVER, you get 10% off. What a great deal. We are so thankful and excited about this partnership. Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
Times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for a free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
For more great content, go to flyoverconservatives.com.